Well, it's really my great pleasure to introduce this beautiful lady, DG. I've known her for years and years, and she is like my daughter and a really close friend relation. And it's always so beautiful, to have somebody that you've known for years, first as a student and then a friend, to do something, quite significant, with her life, and enrich the lives of all of us. And she certainly has that's a beautiful gift. I mean, all you have to do is look at her and see that beautiful smile and those twinkling eyes to know, hey, there's something there. And she just it fills the room, with that life that's within her, and she's willing to share that with all of us in the most open manner. And her writings, throughout the years, have gotten stronger and stronger as she finds her voice and finds her inner spirit. And all you have to do is, of course, pick up her book, which I hope she brought lots of copies so we can all purchase them and sign them and stuff, and have her sign them for us, because they're very, very inspiring. And when you read her words, you begin to sense her journey and where she's been, and also where she's going, And as an artist, I can really appreciate the significance, of her words, and the kind of richness that she offers all of us. And because when you look at artwork, or you read the lines, in a poetry, it tells us something about who we are as human beings in our spirit, as we all are related. And it helps all of us in that manner, and artists have the ability to express that inner spirit of who we are. It's through music, through visual art, and certainly through words. You can get a better sense of who we are as a human being. And certainly DG brings that into her work. And, it's such a privilege, to be here today and to have her come and visit with us. And I know some of you, probably realize, that she's had some struggles these past, a few years that have been pretty traumatic. And through that struggle, it's just made her a much stronger person, and it's even strengthened her words and how she thinks about life. And it's hard to trivialize life when you've been on the brink of it. And she brings that, to us today through her presence, but also, of course, in her words. And she's a great strength for all of us in that way. As a student here at the college, it was always terrific to see her and work with her, because she was somebody that was there to be successful and succeed at what she did, and she worked very hard at it. And she, at the same time, kept just a great perspective. She was never really bitter about things. If something happened that was unpleasant, which we all experience from time to time, she's able to get past that and understand that, well, it's just part of life. So she has that capacity for life that I think is inspiring, and certainly in reading her book, you'll understand that too. And it's always great to see or to read lines of poetry or stories that you kind of wonder, geez, how did they put that together? It's just so great. And it does take you to places that you wouldn't have gone otherwise. So I really thank DG for that special gift. Thank you, Frank. Got her all wired up here.
Yeah.
And I could, of course, go on and talk forever here, but I did also want to mention we had her. I ran this Ames camp, which a few of us know about, and Juan was assistant director of that camp, and we'd had DG and her husband Myron come in and help us out, and he did such a wonderful job, and you could tell, just by the way the young people, would hang around, and talk to her and stuff, that, she did have that special giving quality, that penetrates all age groups, Very caring individual. So I, again, appreciate DG taking the time to be with us today and share her beautiful words with us. So without further ado, beautiful,
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me, because these girls I've known since they were this big. I mean, this big. And to see them grown up and singing at their mother's direction, it means the world to me. And what a blessing. What a blessing I'll go home with. And you'll be in my heart, and I'll hear that song again. As I go through my days and in my life, I will carry that with me. Thank you. Yeah. Well, what an opening, and what a great, beautiful group of people here. And I feel so grounded and so at home. I lived here 15 years, and this to me, I came as a young woman, lost, kind of lost, not knowing what to do, taking courses, but not really, going full time. And then as soon as I took my first course, 8 o'clock Monday morning, and it was Corky's class, and it was called Native Images in Film. And that class woke me up in such a way that I had to finish college. I had to share my voice and my thoughts with the world. And waking up and going to that class, because I drove 2 hours around the lake from Whitefish to go to school all day from 9 o'clock until 5, and then I drive 2 hours back to Whitefish in the evening. And that's how much I wanted to go to school after that class. And it's been such a up and down kind of direction that I started at, but I believe now it's the best thing that I've done. And I want to thank Salish Kootenai College for hosting me and having me here in a theater that we only dreamed of when I was here. we had old buildings, and we had like, you know, leaky faucets, and like, you know, just an old school that was, you know, kind of cool, but kind of old at the same time. And to come back to a campus, to this grandeur is amazing to me. I mean, I drove around campus. They brought me around campus before I came here, and I was just in awe of all the buildings and all of the growth that has happened here. After I left Salish Kootenai College, and that gave me a great foundation in life. It gave me direction, and Corky and Linda King, and Roy Big Crane, and Virgil Brave Rock. I have a William Brave Bull student, so it's like, forgive me, Brave Rock, to guide me and to help me grow in ways that I never thought I would. And, you know, this is my foundation. Right here is my foundation. And this is hallowed ground. It's beautiful. And so after I went to Salish Kootenai College, I was accepted to the Institute of American Indian Arts. And it's kind of an icon of the tribal colleges for an art school. I took classes in like painting and drawing and like ceramics, and like every class they offer, the first year you have to take, you know, as far as the arts. But I leaned towards the writing part because that's what I knew, and that's what I loved. And the words came to me in such a amazing way. I was told and I was taught by Corky that words are sacred, and that you have 10,000 years ago, 1,532 years in the future, and right now, in the last 3 minutes, a person who sits beside. And that person is a storyteller. And I'm just a vessel. I'm a hollow bone that these stories come through, and I don't own them. They're not mine to own. They're stories that go through me, and we call it sila at home, and that's the breast soul in the wind. And when that happens, you know, it's a special feeling. And it wasn't until last week I was on Native American Calling for Book of the Month Club. And my aunties, who one I only met once, and the other one lived way east towards Canadian line, Katovik. And one lived way over in Kotzebue on the other side of the state, near the ocean. They both called in within 5 minutes of each other, and they said, "This is your auntie. Do you remember me? This is your auntie." Both their names are Mary, and they said, "This is when I met you at the hospital when you met your mother." And I was like, "Oh yes, I remember." And they kept calling me Anak. And Anak is an old Inupiaq word, because I learned my language here at Salish Kootenai College. I did independent study with Michael Dawson, they said, you have to learn either Salish or Kootenai. And I was like, no, I want to learn my own language. So Mike Dawson was kind enough to work with me for 2 years with my own language. We got the books, the dictionary, and the grammar books. And I didn't know at that time my auntie had written those books. And so when my aunties called in, they kept calling me Nanouk. And I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't want to feel stupid on the radio and say, Auntie, what does that mean? You know, I don't know those words, you know. And my husband and my best friend are standing behind the glass in the studio, and they're going, and they didn't want me to start crying because I'm a big, mushy person. And they didn't want me to start crying. They both knew that I was going to start bawling. And so I sucked it up, and I got done the book reading, and I got done the speech and the question and answer. And then I went home, and I looked up in the old Nanouk dictionary, and it said, Nanouk, you're an old storyteller now. And that to me blew my mind, and it meant such an honor to be able to carry words in a respectful way for your people. And my people are Nup'ik Inuit. And to be called an Nanouk is such an honor to me that I respect words in that way. And I'm very crazy and anal about like words. Anyway, you know, my first book was this big, and it was the Oxford English Dictionary. And I had read a story here at Salish, and it was a modern contemporary literature class, and was taught by Shannon Riley, I think. And the book was essentially an anthology of different writers that how writing had changed their lives. And so the first story was by Malcolm X. He learned to read in jail by reading every word in the dictionary and learning to use it. He taught himself to read and write with the dictionary as he was incarcerated. So that inspiration blew my mind. And I thought, you know, if he can do it, I can do it. So I went and bought this big old Oxford English Dictionary and have never stopped using it. I use it every day, and I believe in writing that there needs to be many points of view. And that means you need the point of view of the dictionary, but you also might need the point of view of an Anglican priest that wrote back in the 1600s about Nanouk people. Or you might need, you know, a sociologist's view of the way the people hunted or lived. You might need an anthropologist, scientist, you know, non-native people. But also, all of those views are very important because you get all points of view then. And then the word blossoms. And so you have all this, I have all this information on my page, and I go through each, you know, a word has the first meaning, and then it has the second meaning, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Some meanings might be, you know, 58 meanings to one word. And I believe that you need all of that to see one point of view, because everyone's opinion in the world, and that you can you need to look at the word and recognize it as a tool. You know, it's a tool to use, and that's the way I use it. My next book is going to be an anthology, and it's an anthology of the circumpolar north. And so there will be Alaska, there'll be Canada, there'll be Greenland, there'll be northern Sami, which are also really close connected to Inuit. And then Russian and Alaska. So all of these groups speak Inuit. They're just different dialects. And each dialect, I want to have a poem written by someone from that location, and then we can work together and write in English. Because Chinook was a language we used to have that would connect, and we could all trade, and we could all, it was a language we all knew, you know, in the circumpolar north in order to trade goods. And so that language has, you know, died out slowly. And now English, of course, is the tool for the world. English is the tool for the world. So I want to do, in each language, they have phonetic alphabets. In Inuit, they have Nanouk Okpik, they have Cyrillic, they have phonetic alphabet, International Phonetic Alphabet in Alaska. They have Greenlandic, and they have Sami. So all of those versions, you know, despite the borders and boundaries, I mean, we never saw borders and boundaries before. So despite the borders and boundaries, we're going to do this book and have it be the first of its kind, you know, and I believe it's very important that we all can have that kind of book and that kind of you know, access to resource. So that's some of the work that I do. I teach at the Institute of American Indian Arts, and I also work midnight to 8 in the morning at Santa Fe Indian School as an RA, because it affords me to read and write 4 to 6 hours as I'm working. I mean, what a wonderful job. You know, I can take care of the kids, and I could read and write. And so that's my jobs. So I'm going to start here. You know, I'm thinking, how much time do we have? Does anyone know? Okay. Okay, so the first thing, I'm going to read 2 introductions, and they're old Inuit. One is Knud Rasmussen, translator Opingalak, and he is from the 5th Thule edition in Pelly Bay, Canada. And the second one is Pudlo Pudlat, and he's an Inuit elder from 1916 to 1982, and he's from Cape Dorset. And that's also at the Hood Art Museum. So, in the time of origin, in the formation of Inuk, which means man, let me see if there's any other words. I usually go through and tell you if there's words. Man in Inuit is spirit. In the time of origin, in the formation of the Nanouk, she watches while the living awaits the relatives to come around the bend. Stoned to death, but not idle, since the last ice age. Nanouk Okpik, by slow pounding and grinding, like a poultice in a mortar bowl. Kabluna souls are devoured, and as she watches my Inua to fly out of the sealskin porthole, as smoke as my ghost. She and I write these stories in a box. Buster Kalak, a Nunavut man, once said, "The greatest peril of life lies in the fact that food consists entirely of souls." Songs are thoughts sung out of the breath when people are moved by great forces, and ordinary speech no longer suffices. Man is moved just like the ice flows, sailing here and there in the current. His thoughts are driven by the flowing force when he feels joy, when he feels fear, when he feels sorrow. Thoughts can wash over him like a flood, waiting and making his breath come in gasps and his heart throb. Something like an abatement in the weather will keep him thought up. And then it will happen that we fear to use words. But it will happen that words we need to come themselves. When words we want to use shoot up of themselves, and we get a new song. So my first poem, I'm actually going to read the title poem to the book, and it's called Corpse Whale. And when Yankee whalers first came to the Arctic, there were Russian, Norwegian, and they're the first comers. It wasn't Columbus, and it wasn't 1492, but there were Norwegian and Russians coming. And so this poem has to do, and it has a double metaphor, corpse whale. The whales in Alaska, they're small and they're big. And the small ones are special. One that is my favorite is a narwhal. And they call them narwhals or narwhales. And they're small like a dolphin. In fact, they're in the dolphin family. And they have a twirly unicorn that comes straight out of their forehead. And it's about 8 feet long. And they like to sun themselves in the water. And so they look, as they're sunning, like a spotted human pelt. I mean, they look like humans. And so when the first sailors came, they were very superstitious, and they were very afraid of these whales, and they wouldn't go near them because they were just tremendously scared of them. That's one version of the corpse whale. The other version is that the metaphor for whales that are coming to the Arctic that have never been there before. There's whales that are blue whales. There's whales that are blue whales, right whales, and killer whales. And they like to eat the smaller whales, which are bowhead, some narwhal, and also whales that look like they're actually dolphins, but they call them whales. Beluga whales, and they're white, and they look like they have a smiling face on all the time, and they're gorgeous. But so these whales are being eaten by the other whales because the water is warming, and global warming has changed a lot in the Arctic, and the animals are changing, and the birds are changing, and all of this, changing and chaos is going on up there. And so that's the second metaphor for this book, and it's called Corpse Whale because I feel that these whales are they're meant to die. We have stories of them dying, like we as humans are speeding up their death, and that's not good. But we have stories that we knew things were going to happen, just like the first ice age, the last ice age. And, the dinosaurs left. We knew this. We knew this was going to happen, and the world is changing, and it's really a terrible thing, but it also is a natural environmental occurrence. And us as people have changed that, speeding it up in such a way that it's not good. So that's the metaphor of the book, Corpse Whale. Now, the front of the book, these are 4 corpse whales at the bottom. Can you all see? And then there's a horizon line, which is the line to the midnight sun, which is in where I'm from. The midnight sun is 24 hours darkness, starting around now and lasting until spring, where summer, the 24-hour of daylight is happening. So this is the midnight sun. This is the midnight sun world. And it is dark, and it is like dusk or like dawn. And this is the midnight, this is the moon, and the midnight sun, which is always there at the horizon, and then Polaris star, which is the North Star. And to all of that, we are thankful. So this poem, the title poem, is called Her, My Arctic, Corpse Whale. I change, in some of these poems, I have a she and a slash and an I. And that means, to me, it's myself, but it also is my spirit. And there's too much ego in the world, I believe, and there's too much I, I did this, I did that. We is gone. And we know as tribal people, it is we, it's us, it's all of us. And we think of it as one big family. But in the Western world, it's all about me. It's all about me. It's I. And so I venture into that grid where I can get away with writing she and spirit, or she and I as the spirit breaking off and becoming another animal or another, fish or bird or becoming something else. It's almost a transformation of my own spirit. And there's no I then. So some of my poems have that. And it's she/I. Her, my Arctic, the corpse whale. It comes back to the Inuit me. Images in the mirror are closer than they appear on my kayak skin boat. She and I was forged by sea salt, by snow hammered into iron hoard or red herring. While she and I are paddling, another floating corpse, spotted human pelt. A narwhal is passing a turquoise iceberg. Of plucked bones of ivory with a spiral blood-stained ribbon, reduced to a single tusk, she and I passes and keeps paddling. In a sea with gray and choppy scarlet walls of water are carnage fuel oil wicks and lighted igloos on the polar seaboard next to washed up, empty blue-green Coke bottle floats, fishing floats mark a threadbare seine net packed with arms of purple octopus. Grabbing the rearview mirror, she and I keep paddling. Towing a 9-foot tusk, draggle a blood trail, a gaff a glass and blink. The eyelids shun the risky, long-handed braille rope packs. She and my eardrums playing an old throat song, dry as sunspots. She and I keep paddling. In a lidless cesarean section of ozone layer, a white giant looks through a tainted glass rope porthole, adopts young Inuit like a mottled jellyfish, suck blood quantum, and raises the underground flag beneath Polaris star. She and I keep paddling. She and my flouncing caribou and dark moonlight are dodging bush laws. Her and my Malamute trots in Arctic circles before the midnight sun. Her and my ring seal barks couplets of foreshadows in an oval tasting room with white columns and musty yellow logbooks. She and I keep paddling, reading the shore of the Beaufort Sea, landing the kayak. She and I witness in triple thick permafrost the land merging. The Inuit skeletons are rising like brittle driftwood ivory as the stellar eagle plummets, and she and I try to push and pushing and shoving the sinew back into the threaded bones of the land. There's a lot happening in Alaska that is very scary, and one of them is the permafrost is melting, and because that's happening, there are bones of old encampments and the bones are rising from the tundra, and you'll see them in old campsites where the bones are rising. And I thought about that when I read it, and I was just paralyzed knowing that, you know, these bones are there and they're rising. And, you know, what we can do as humans to set them to rest is, you know, to place them in a place that is, you know, maybe in the same spot, maybe in the same coffins, and then placing them back in their final resting place. Because right now what's happening is even mammoth tusks and mammoth and what do I want to say? Mastodon are rising, and their ivory, their big, huge ivory, is being taken and made jewelry out of, and it's beautiful jewelry, but I do believe they need to be blessed, and they need to be placed in a place where they're not disturbed. You know, okay, a little bit of ivory is good, you know, to take in for people that don't have a lot of money to make jewelry and to sell. But I think for me, it needs to be done in a good way, and it needs to be done, and the young people should, I believe, take care of this on their own and do it for the families that came before us, our ancestors. So this last poem is a long poem, and this poem for the spirits who have not yet rounded the bend. In our creation story, the spirits circle the earth waiting for the ones that are coming around the bend. And then when they come here and they finish that journey, they come to earth, and then they appease the people. They keep the people at bay, and they keep them safe and with spirit. So this is in 5 sections, and these sections are, as you will see, they were written in the 5 sections for a purpose, and it kind of, it's a direct letter to each one of my mothers. I was adopted when I was an infant, and I didn't find my birth parents until I was 21 or 22, maybe. And I met them by going into the sweat lodge and being told, you know, you need to go home now. And I went home, and I took classes at the university and Alaska Native Studies, and I waited, and a month later I met my mother by sheer coincidence. I was at the hospital. I was getting dentures because I was an avid snowboarder, and you know, we do these silly things when we're young, and I lost all my teeth. And so I went to the hospital there in Anchorage because I could get full dentures free. So I went to Alaska, and I listened to what the men told me in the sweat lodge. And I believed it. I believed in it. And I think that's part of the thing, is believing in it. And so this poem is believing that things can happen in a mysterious and miracle way. I met my mother. The lady at the desk was punching in my name and punching in my social, and she was in Inupiaq. And she said, oh, well, since she was from Barrow, my hometown, she says, oh, well, I know people from Barrow. I'm from Barrow. You have a lot of people that are your relatives that live in Anchorage. And you have one person in here in the hospital that is a relative of yours, Okpik. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, well, I have my lunch break in a half hour. Why don't we go on my lunch break and we'll go meet them? And I was told by the elders, you're going to go and you're going to meet your family. But I never thought it was going to be this quick, So she's like, I'll tell you in a half hour, I have my lunch break and you wait out here and I'll take you up to her and you can meet her. Maybe she knows your aunties, maybe she knows your cousins. So I went up there, and when I walked in the room, it was a mirror image of my face. And all I could say to this woman was, oh my God. I said, my birthday is May 17th and 1966. And she's like, oh my God, you're my daughter. And so that magical piece that happened to me made me write this poem. And I wanted to try to write a long poem anyway, but I never thought that I would meet my mother and, write a poem in this way. And this is dedicated to both of my mothers, which is, alarming to me because my adopted mother is dead and my adopted father is dead. So this is my version of the natural world and my world combined into, global warming and also my work. In our creation stories, for the spirits who have rounded the bend, and this happens, our people go around and around and around the bend until they're ready to become out into the real world, from the spirit world to the outside world, the natural world. I'm trying to think some of the words that are in here, and I'll name them as we go because I can't see any right now. For the spirits who have rounded the bend. Iskaivak. That's an old name for Barrow. For my dear mothers, when an Inuk leaves a round house and enters a square house, he gets a headache and gets nervous. Armand Chaguna, 1926, Inuktitut in Rankin Inlet on the coast of Hudson Bay, an ordained priest in 1960. He wrote that. And that's kind of how it happened to me. I mean, I left a, white picket fence, square house, and I moved into native country and moved into all circles of houses, Light. The seal talked to me with sharp eyes in my dream. Altered, I was able to be with both of you mothers. Light the seal oil lamp, elder women, as I draw thunder from the sky at dusk. Watercrest of the river sound like beams touching the surface, spark a crystal in the whiteout. A flare falls from the edge of the ocean. I shuddered at the I shuddered at the black, dry snow. Seldom have I of rapid growth in years. You both with heads of hair like whalebone strings, white and tenacious. I seldom listen to only one voice, or to only two whalebone strings, white and tenacious. I seldom listen to your voice, or to whalebone strings. Oh wait, like whalebone, wait, I'm sorry. Those standing in a row in the night. They stand up as rays of sun smoke just when the night turns to a gleam ripple and the glass water. Then the ligature of Inuit light flux and flows like herds of walrus passing along the coast. This is a seal hook of bear claws, clipping me to the northern tilt, pinning me to the cycle of night when the day slows and the wind shifts to cloud and the moon shining grows to sunroofs, and I answer the coal seal eyes with a throat song, standing on the strong foot and dance with white gloves. Natural world adoption. I learned to crack mussel shells, to collect moss on rocks, have strewn caribou hides across malleable tundra, how to stop my finger joints from cracking in frost, to dye my hair garnet to fit in, to feel earthquakes uprooting soapstone and jade, to count milliseconds by watching a brook run, to count cracks in an ice floe, to drink water from a horsetail reed. Now my ball and sockets rub and roll the way hummocks bound and rivet the northern tip of the Rockies. I read books until my eyes chart points and words down 400 miles in desert. My tongue clipped to the brow antler, the words rubbing skin to make thunder and lightning. I guide the harpoon line hanging in the singing house to make thunder than lightning. I guide the harpoon line hanging in the singing house to make many blessed eggs for mothers and for children. I stitch you around my eyes and down my chin. Through my altered states, I remember it is you who guides me from long ice needles. It is you threading the singe of my sealskin, patching letters tied to ink blood. I'm seeing only willful DNA, tattooed to the snow knife, to cutting the ice blocks of chins. I see only willful DNA, strange and tattooed to the snow knife for cutting ice blocks of chins. I am seeing this perhaps for a house, a shelter, DNA in a starved storm, but I had not prayed for this. Perhaps my descension into fish or birds. I wanted to and was to make it until the large stalks of musk oxen are gone. Then I wonder, and I choose sable days and flux nights. 5. Spirit world. In the feast from the messenger, I pray you ask for me in moon smoke. Ask for the truth, tracing the upright twirl of dark madness into white light, leaving cairns and effigies behind in restless travel with bowheads. I will settle down to give you this tiger bundle of charts and maps to find me in unnatural shapes. But in bare grace, it is the bundle of charts and maps and bowhead counting along the sea and body and Eucharist in the seal effigy. When the bones surface in late stages of calling, with coiled willow root around their wrists, ankles, I pray, and with that fire falls into ash, and ash into the shoal, as we at the end of the pier mend the snow, waterproof seams of musket tundra, to thank whale people for oxygen, to help the border and flesh of church, and that the old book is read with ivory oxygen after the border of the church, after the rib tools to create Okpik instead of Christianity. When the bell tones across the sound, until then, I will wash ashore a dazed whiteout, hide flesh, with my forepaws hanging limply, my hood, my golden eyes with concentric circles, lines on my chin with large backbone for my lungs, and my heart of spotted wings. Thank you. I'm sorry I was tripping on lines. I was trying to, I need reading glasses for one. So that makes it, and then I forget them, so. But I hope you enjoyed some of the background of Alaska and some of the things that I look at and pray for and think of, as the universe calling out for knowledge and for, showing accountability and taking that responsibility and writing something or causing art, to remember, where we're from and where we're going. And art has a lot to do with that. And I believe so much that, I am just delighted to be part of the arts and part of, what I can do, just a small bit, just a small bit, but I can do something, and that makes me very happy. So, thank you again.